I'm Tasha with the Bay Area chapter of the Goretti group, and I'm here with my friend Taylor from CandidCommunion. Taylor, I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here with you. My name's Taylor. I have an Instagram community called CandidCommunion. We started about a year ago, and I really just wanted a place for young Catholic women who are trying to live their faith to gather and grow together and see that in this crazy Instagram world that there are others living their faith just like them, going through the same struggles, and really just make it a place for everyone to feel accepted and like they can boldly live their faith. So it's been really fun. The last year has been so much fun.
So Taylor, tell me a little bit more about what inspired you to start your community when you did, and what were some of your goals?
I think that I really felt a big tug during the pandemic. I gave up social media for Lent last year. And so during the lockdowns, I had tons of time to myself without my phone. And I spent lots of time in prayer. And I was just really longing for community, as we all were. But I grew up in a Catholic family, very traditional Catholic family, but we were all in public school because my parents are in public education. My dad's a coach and my mom is a teacher. And so there wasn't a lot of Catholics around us in our area. The only Catholic community I knew was my family. So growing up, I was involved in youth group, but I never felt like I really had anyone that I connected on a really personal level. So yeah, during the pandemic, I just felt a tug to go find those girls and let them know that they are not alone. So that's what we did.
So tell me a little bit more about your journey with chastity and your connection to Saint Maria Goretti.
Saint Maria Goretti is my patron saint. She's incredible. I love her so much. I just always, from the time that I was a little girl or, a teenager, and kind of learning about chastity and purity and what it all means, her story impacted me so much. And I just always thought I want to be a martyr just like her. And I think in many ways, we can be modern day martyrs like Saint Maria Goretti, so not to the same extent, but the culture right now is flipped completely. And the church is persecuted. Our beliefs are persecuted, what we believe as Catholics about our bodies and sex and everything that falls under chastity, purity, all of it. There's persecution that comes with that, as well as just the human element that is, we were created for intimacy, and everything around us shows us the opposite of what it really is. So Saint Maria Goretti has been with me for a long time, and she's someone that I look up to and pray to, that I could die to myself and love others through purity as well in relationships, which I guess we can get to that. But
was it difficult for you going through high school and college being committed to chastity? And did you ever change your mind about your commitment or have second thoughts?
Challenging, probably, like it is to live out any other virtue. One thing I love about the church, the Catholic Church, is the discipline that we have truth. And it's really easy to stay, not easy, but it's easier to stay pure and chaste and live by that virtue when we understand the why behind it. It's so much easier. So I feel like as Catholics, we have an advantage. So I don't know if it was hard. I think my point of view is different, as I think a lot of Catholics' point of view on sex or purity or anything like that is. I think we have a different view. So it's a lot easier for us to live it when we know what it means and how God created sex and intimacy for a marriage. And if we want everything to be the best that it can be, then we will do whatever we have to do to make sure that we do it exactly as God intended it. So that was always in the back of my mind. But also I think my nature is, I never didn't believe the people who, whenever we were growing up and they would talk about chastity and talk about purity, I think a lot of people instinct is to rebel or go see for themselves. I don't know why, but I never had those instincts. I really, and maybe it was the intercession of Saint Maria Goretti. I don't know. I'd like to think so, but I really bought into everything that they were saying and really wanted to experience it and experience my life in what the fruits that could come from living a chaste life could be. So that was always to me way more appealing than the watered down kind of whatever we see, the lies that we're told today.
What impact did studying theology of the body have on you?
I love it. I don't know why theology of the body isn't shouted from the rooftops of every parish and every church, every high school, Catholic school. It completely changed my life. It changed my perception on relationships. That is also something when I say that I didn't have my phone during Lent or social media, theology of the body was something that I really got into and started reading up on and learning about. And so I feel like I came out of the pandemic like completely, there was no fog, like I had a new sense of our dignity as women and as people, and the way that we were created and how we can get the most out of the people around us. And it is absolutely opposite of what the culture is right now. And so I think it's great. I don't remember your initial question, but I could talk about theology of the body for a long time.
Yeah, just how did it impact you? So kind of talking about how it's very contrary to what the world teaches. Some people watching this might not have an idea of what theology of the body is. Can you give a brief summary of what it is or some takeaways from that?
Yeah, some takeaways. I don't know if I could give you the exact summary of what they would give at the TOB Institute, but for me, it really just redefines, like I said, what we are as humans, as people, and how we're called to love each other romantically, but just as in relationships. It's a very selfless outlook, I feel like. Like I said, I started dating right out of the pandemic, and I went into dating with a different outlook. Like, what can I give this person and what can I pour into them? And then what can I take from them as a person, not as a husband, not as my future spouse, not what job does he have? Can he provide for me? I think, especially as Catholics, we get really intense when we're dating. And I think we have this little checklist of, or at least in my experience and what I've talked to people who are over on CandidCommunion, we have this list of what this man is going to be for me before we even sit down on a date. Or we think that agreeing to a first date is accepting a marriage proposal. And both of those things have been detrimental to me in the past. And I think that is relatable to a lot of other Catholics. So it really changed my perspective of seeing this person the way that God created them, and what gifts did God give them that they can share with me, and what gifts do I have that I can share with them, instead of what can you be for me and what can I be for you. It's one word, but it's a big difference.
So what advice would you give young women coming out of a relationship or healing from a breakup?
I think, speaking from my own personal experience, take your time in healing and really find what you can take away. Like, what can you do differently? What do you want differently? I think too, I was a little bit this way. I didn't want to date because I wanted to wait for my husband. But again, that was a little bit detrimental, because you learn so much about yourself when you're dating someone. You learn about people and just the way that God designs us, the way that God designs men. And obviously I'm speaking as a woman. And so I think to be intentional about your healing, when I went through a really bad breakup, I spent hours in front of the Blessed Sacrament, asking the Lord to just reveal whatever was to come from that, whatever lessons I was to learn. I started like when I was in college, and if I didn't have a date, I would go to adoration and spend time with Jesus and just pray for my husband. And looking back, I'm so grateful for those hours because I think that it's in those moments that the Lord will mold our hearts. And if we ask him to reveal whatever's for us, he will. And I think it's easy that we're told maybe jump from one relationship to the next. And I think the more intentional we are about healing and seeing what we can learn and what we can take away, I think that can help you in your next relationship. At least that's what I experienced.
Were there any exercises you did, like journaling about what qualities you look for in a future spouse, or anything that you would recommend young women do before they start dating?
My exercise, I would say, would be adoration. I do take a journal in there, not all the time, because sometimes I think I think adoration can be intimidating, but like I said, those hours I spent, the Lord was actually working on my heart and softening my heart to who my husband would be. And the time I spent there completely prepared me for what was to come in my future. And so I always tell anyone who asks, the key to a breakup for me was always adoration. It's not, I don't know if that's the answer people want. It's not, it takes a lot of accepting the pain, there was a lot of processing and just sitting in pain, but who better to sit in your pain with than Jesus? I mean, we will never know a pain like he experienced. So there's also grace that we can get from uniting our suffering to his. So I think sitting in front of the Blessed Sacrament is the key.
What advice would you give to a young Catholic woman who's wondering if she should date a Protestant Christian? And what are your thoughts about interfaith relationships between Protestants and Catholics?
Well, my family, personally speaking, and if you're over on CandidCommunion, I talk about this all the time, but in my immediate family, so my aunts and uncles and cousins, all of us, I think that's immediate, that counts. We have 9 Protestants who are now Catholic after marriage. So that to me growing up was very common. I've learned since meeting all my girlfriends over at CandidCommunion that is not necessarily common. So I don't take that as the standard. But my dad wasn't Catholic when he married my mom. And he converted after 20 years of marriage. I was 18 when he converted. And his conversion had the biggest impact on my faith life. To make it kind of a short story, seeing the way that he honored my mom through his conversion, obviously, my number one, if somebody was going to date someone who wasn't Catholic, would be to make sure that they are on board to raise a Catholic family and that they buy in, because that is what we're called to do as Catholics, and that is non-negotiable. So if someone's not on board with you there, I think that is really hard. And I'm not saying that the Lord doesn't work in crazy ways, but I think that would be first and foremost. I think being bold and upfront about what you want in a family, and that it's your duty and your obligation to live out your faith, and that means your children. That is very important. So I know my mom expressed that to my dad, and he was okay with that. So he was the leader of our family, but he wasn't Catholic. And so he had to really lean on my mom in that way. And she did it with such grace. But just seeing how he honored his yes to her and honored his promise to raise us Catholic, he was always in mass with us. We went to mass as a family. And statistically, we know that the children typically follow the father. So seeing him there, knowing that he wasn't Catholic, but he knew there was importance, or he wouldn't be there. He knew it was important enough to be there and to make sure that we were there. So that played a huge role in my faith life. And yeah, my fiance is actually not Catholic either, but we go to mass together. We've been to adoration together. That was something, when I talk about living your faith boldly, that was something that we talked about right up front. And I just said, this is the most important thing to me. And this is the way that I feel called to raise my family. And if that is not okay with you, that is totally fine. But we don't need to continue this. And we had some conversations about it, and now we're engaged. So I don't think that we should expect conversion from our significant others. I think that you have to go into it asking yourself, would you be okay? Is this a life that you want to live if your significant other doesn't convert? But I think it can be really dangerous too to just close ourselves off and say, if someone doesn't call themselves a Catholic, then I don't want any relationship with them, because I don't know, I've seen the opposite so many times. And I think that the Lord can work. And, maybe it's not even to be your spouse, but maybe it's just to plant a seed with someone, I think we hold people accountable sometimes for the things that they don't know. Maybe someone's never been introduced to the faith. And I'm not saying that it's your job to teach them A, B, C, D, and then, be completely responsible for that. And I'm not advocating for that, but I think when we close ourselves off, we also close off what the Lord can do through us. So I think it's important to really discern and to get good at discernment if you think that you want to be with somebody who isn't a Catholic and your faith is that important to you, because it's definitely the most important thing in my life. And now like I said, I have a fiance who is on board with that, and we love going to mass together. It's one of our favorite things to do, and he's said that too. So it's been a huge blessing, and it didn't come up without lots of prayer and novenas and discernment. But I think if you're going to do it, definitely be intentional about it. Know exactly what you expect and lay out what you expect, because you would rather, lay it out up front than kind of glide by and then find out 8 months down the road that, they have a completely different outlook on things, and that could be hurt waiting. So those are my thoughts on that.
Can you tell us a little bit about God's timing in your relationship and how he lined things up with regard to important feast days of saints or when you were praying your novenas?
Yes. So Logan's my fiance. We met a year ago, and it was actually, we met right before I started the Saint Anne novena last year, and went on our first date right after it ended. So she was kind of in there, but we got engaged this past July. It's August now. So this past July on the first day of the Saint Anne novena. And it was just coincidentally that I did the St. Joseph consecration that started on January 1st. And the first day that I started that novena and that consecration was the day that he asked me to be his girlfriend. So St. Joseph's number one, he asked me to be his girlfriend, which I think is a very important step in a relationship. And then the St. Anne novena, he asked me to be his wife. So we love first days over here. But St. Joseph was a big part of my mom and dad's. He was always the patron saint of our family when my dad wasn't Catholic. I know my mom leaned on him a lot for strength and just guidance and a spiritual help throughout those years. And so it was very fitting to me. St. Joseph's my guy.
So when you were dating your now fiance, what are some of the ways that you knew he was the one for you in compared to previous relationships? And can you also talk about how maybe in previous relationships you tried to look for signs an affirmation and confirmation from God that a previous person was the one for you?
Yes. So I'll say this. I had never, I don't want to say that it was instantaneous because it wasn't. We went on some dates. We had a very slow start. So we started dating in July and probably went on like one date a month until November. He was in football season. I was in football season. We both work in athletics. So it was our busy time. But once I kind of realized that I really enjoyed spending time with him, and that our worldviews were very similar or the same, I wanted to explore it, and he made it very clear that he did as well. He's very intentional. And I think that that's something that we can overlook. If a man is not intentional with you or does not pursue you, there's a problem, because they were made to do that. That is in their nature. Theology of the body will tell you, like, they're hunters. They were made to go get what they want. And it is not too much to ask for a man to be intentional with you. So he was very intentional from the beginning, which I really appreciated. And then once I kind of, was praying about, let's explore this, if this is not what you want, Lord, then show me that. I just had an overwhelming sense of peace that I have never felt, and I continue to have it, but it was a peace that I cannot explain. People talk about when you know, and we knew pretty quick. It was just an unshakable peace. And I'm the kind, I will ask, the Lord again and again, Lord, is this what you want from me? Am I reading this right? Am I seeing this right? Am I hearing this right? If this is not what you want, tell me and I will not. But I felt like every time I asked, he showed me again and again. And he'll do that for you. He will do that for all of us. We are his daughters and his sons, and he wants us, he is the one who puts our desires in our hearts, and he will uncover them for us. So while I started the St. Joseph Novena, we were doing the consecration, and every day in that consecration, you go through a characteristic or a virtue that St. Joseph had, and kind of learn about how he was in his life. And it was like everything that we talked about in our consecration was simultaneously revealed to me in Logan, with how patient and strong and committed and all of those things that St. Joseph is, was just, like I said, slowly revealed. So it was the peace, along with just seeing his character and virtue come through. I think that, like you were saying about signs, especially as Catholics, we'll pray a novena and then we pass something in the cloud that looks like maybe the answer to our prayers. And I think we're all probably guilty to some extent of that at some point in our life, searching and digging. My experience now, looking back, would be that you don't have to look that hard if the Lord is putting something in front of you that he wants for you. I felt like in my experience, I was almost trying to look for reasons why he wasn't the one, to make sure that he was. I don't recommend that either. But yeah, like I said, as we'll pray novena and think that the sign is in our soup letters or something. And I just think, like I said, in my experience, if the Lord is putting something in front of you, he will show you, and there will be no doubt. And it takes a little faith too. At some point you have to just commit and say, Lord, if this isn't from you, then throw me off track, and he will.
Did your family or did Logan's family have reservations about your relationship being an interfaith couple between Protestant Christianity and Catholicism?
To my knowledge, no, they did not. I think my family trusted me in my discernment and knew how serious I was about what I want in my family and what I want to build with him. And I think his family felt the same. I know he has part of his family is Catholic, so he wasn't completely unfamiliar. But I think the same. I think they trusted him, and the more that we practiced Catholicism together, so going to mass together, praying together, like I said, we've been to adoration before. The more we did that, the more we kind of, I think, start, and it's still continuing. I mean, we've been together a year, so we get our identity a little bit like as a couple in faith now. And so we're really exploring that together and everything that God can do through our faith. But I think on my side, like I said, it's been a theme a little bit for those who have married Protestants. Now they're all Catholic, or most of them are Catholic. So it wasn't something that we hadn't seen before. Definitely not something that we take lightly. I think my family would say that. I don't want to speak for them, but I think they're all really excited. Well, I know they're all really excited.
What advice would you give to a woman who's considering dating someone who is not Catholic or who is Protestant? What advice would you give?
I would say first, know exactly what you want. Know what you want in your family, know what you want in your husband. Are you going to go to mass as a family? Do you care if your husband doesn't go? Do you want your husband to go, say he's Methodist? Do you want your husband to go to the Methodist church and you go to the Catholic church? What about your kids? Because as we said, statistics show that the children follow the father. So are your kids going to go with him some of the time and you some of the time? I don't recommend any of that. But I think definitely know what is important to you and what you want, and what you expect out of that, and then make your expectations known. And if the man is not receptive of that, I think especially as women, it's harder for us because the man leads. So I think it's harder for them to follow our faith just instinctively. I just think that's part of it. So I think it's serious conversations that need to be had if that is something that you're wanting to do. But I also think it's important that you respect their faith and their faith journey and where they are. And I've always told Logan, I want everyone to be Catholic. Everyone. We were all Catholic at one time, and I pray that we all are Catholic again. But I would never want you to be Catholic for me. I would want that to be for you and for your relationship and to be intimate with Jesus. And so I think being respectful of their relationship, and if they are not into that, or they have real reservations that could be detrimental to your relationship moving forward, I think that's something you really need to consider. Like I said, I'm not advocating to run off and start, dating, but I'm not saying that it can't end well. And I think it's case by case. I honestly, if I could speak candidly, but I think prayer and discernment and knowing that your relationship is your relationship, and you probably know what's best. The Holy Spirit will definitely guide you if you ask.
You talked a little bit about some of the things that you and Logan have done together in the Catholic sphere, like going to adoration, going to mass. Can you tell me a little bit about the spiritual common ground that you have found with his faith as a Protestant, or have you done any Bible studies together? Sort of like if a Protestant were to listening to this, they might think, oh, like it sounds like he's super accommodating to your faith. What have you done to sort of accommodate to his faith, or what common ground have you found just with his beliefs as a Protestant Christian?
That's a really good question. And I don't know if this is the answer you're looking for, but we have a lot of open conversation, just about, he'll say, this is where I'm coming from on my faith and where I'm coming from and what I believe. And then I will tell him what we believe as Catholics. And we just have a lot of dialogue. I'll say this. he is the greatest communicator, and together we communicate really well. That is so overlooked. I didn't know it was possible to communicate so well with another human. Honestly, it takes intentionality, and it's all him. It's not me, but it's all him. But I think that is really key, is being able to have open conversations that aren't emotional, that are fact-based and not, I have a tendency, or I have in the past, I'm very passionate about my faith, as I think most of us are as Catholics. And so I had to really learn how to take my emotion out of it and speak logically and factually. And I think too that he would say the biggest way that we connect is just by conversation. We also are doing the Next Step program together. It's a pre-engagement course. Elizabeth Busby created it, and she is now at the TOB Institute with Christopher West. So we're one of, I think, the third or fourth class that they've done this with. But instead of your marriage prep being after engagement and before your wedding, we started pre-engagement. So it goes through, we're almost finished with it, but it goes through a lot of big things that we believe as Catholics, and what it looks like to date the Catholic way, basically. Like our last class was just on NFP. And so that was so fruitful for us because it gives us kind of a starting place. Not that we haven't already talked about all these things, but it gives us a chance to have more open dialogue, and he can bring in what he believes and what he knows, and I can bring in what I know.
And for those of you who are not familiar with what NFP stands for, it stands for Natural Family Planning. Yes. The traditional Catholic Church viewpoint is against artificial birth control or contraception. Can you tell us a little bit more about what is natural family planning, and how is it different from a woman being on the birth control pill or using condoms in a marriage or something like that to avoid having children?
Yeah. So there's so many reasons why I would not take the birth control pill that actually have nothing to do with our faith, but just the effects that they can have on us as women, what it does to our bodies. I have a video over on CandidCommunion that I did with Melissa, and she's a licensed marriage and therapy specialist. She's an NFP specialist as well, I think. But we did a video on that, and it kind of answered all the questions on the birth control pill. But basically, natural family planning is having a family naturally and not prohibiting or obstructing pregnancy. So you're able to see your body's natural cycle. You're able to see when you are fertile, and the times that you have a grave reason not to have a child or to create life, you abstain, which brings us back to chastity and how important chastity is, because it is a virtue. And we were talking about that last week, how, right now we're in the dating period, we abstain, and, all the good things that come with that. But how they talked about last week a lot, how we can love each other through abstinence in marriage. And I think that's really beautiful too. So if you want to go into more detail, I can keep going if you need.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
People can look up natural family planning to understand a woman's hormonal cycles and the days that she's fertile in the month and the few days in the month when she's, not fertile, or, vice versa. Basically, there's way more opportunities for a couple to come together in the marital act, and a few days out of the month where a woman is more likely to conceive a child. So during that period of time, a couple would abstain from having marital relations instead of having the marital relations while using artificial birth control. And that's the traditional Catholic Church teaching. A lot of people are unaware of that, and that is why typically Catholic families are a bit larger. Not necessarily because NFP doesn't work, but more so because Catholic families really believe in being open to life and open to God's plan and valuing children, valuing multiple children. instead of necessarily putting a price tag on a child and thinking like, oh, can we afford a child? Should we bring another child into the world? It's overpopulated. You know, we hear a lot of those narratives in the mainstream. So how did—
That was a beautiful way to explain that. And like I said, yeah, that was great. I appreciate that.
Oh, well, how did Logan feel about that? Because I think that that's something a lot of Protestant men don't necessarily know is even a Catholic belief initially. A lot of them don't know that Protestants and Catholics have very different views on birth control.
We have talked about that a lot before we got to our class. We had lots of conversations early on about, like I said, just our beliefs as Catholics and how important those are. And so it wasn't, I don't want to say it was new information to him. It was definitely a place where we could have more fruitful and in-depth conversations, but it was very positive.
That's great. That's encouraging to hear.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to a young woman who is entering high school or college and is maybe unsure if she wants to live a chaste life? She might see her friends in sorority groups or other groups having casual sex with men or experimenting sexually. What advice would you give that young girl?
Advice would be to stay strong, to stick to whatever your gut tells you to do, but also go find out why. Go find out why the church teaches that we are to abstain until marriage. Go find out why we are only supposed to have one partner. Go find out why she teaches what she teaches. Because I think growing up, we hear these rules and they get hammered into us over and over again by our youth director or our parents or whatever, like don't have sex, don't do this, whatever. Sex is great. It's beautiful. God designed it. It literally creates life. So that can only be something that is great. But go find out the why. Go find out what happens, when two people, I mean, obviously when two people love each other. I'm not trying to say that, but I that really changed a lot of things for me, was whenever I really dug in and looked at what God's design for marriage and intimacy is. Because if you look around, especially on a college campus, it's anything but that. And I think also I would encourage them to know that they have value and dignity and worth, and that is worth preserving. And not to say that you don't have dignity or value or worth if you don't live that way. We all do. You are worthy. You are loved. You are worthy of everything good in this world. But if you're asking me, that would be my answer, would be to go find out why the church teaches what she does. And I think the Lord reveals that to each of us in different ways. Obviously, the answer is the same, but I think that can be applied to our lives in different ways, and our experiences and what we've experienced growing up, what our childhood was like, what our friends have gone through. So I think it's a journey, and I would encourage everyone to go on their own.
Is it possible for someone to change if they have been living unchastely? Or what advice would you give to a woman listening to this who maybe has had a lot of premarital sex, has used birth control? What advice would you give to that person?
Yeah, I would say definitely. I don't know why it wouldn't start now. Decide now that you want to live that way. I think it's a beautiful thing, and I think that the Lord will walk with you in any phase of life that you're in. If you even have a little nudge or desire to live a chaste life, it's never too late to start that. Never. And I think the Lord can use you, if that is you. The Lord can use you in your story and whatever experiences you have. So I think it's never too late to decide that, for sure.
What spiritual lessons have you learned since going into ministry and launching Candid Communion? Have there been any trials and tribulations along the way? Any points of like realizations or even just milestones where you've realized, oh, like spiritually, God is teaching me something through going into ministry?
Good question. I feel like those things happen every day. I have those little realizations that just how often the Lord works in our lives and we don't even realize it. And how other people are going through things that you have no idea about, that you wouldn't be able to see unless they told you. And how just being a sister in Christ for someone can be so beneficial to them. We were created for community, which was the point of Candid Communion. And I think if I could take something overall, it would be just that we do thrive in community and we need each other and we need each other in our journey. I think the Lord will put the right people in our path. It's crazy when I think of like all the friends that I've made over the last year just from logging on to Instagram, which before Candid Communion gave me anxiety. I don't want to say anxiety. That was a strong word, but I didn't like it. I didn't like what it promoted, and I'm not a picture-y person, I wouldn't say. So to me, it was just a bunch of pictures and I was like, I don't like that. But now it's this whole world of just people on fire for their faith. And even in the valleys, it's still a place where you can find community and people to walk with you.
Can you tell me a little bit about these speed dating events that you host and what prompted you to have those? Have any fruitful couples come out of those Catholic or Christian speed dates?
They're so much fun. So if you aren't familiar, we have Catholic speed dating nights and they're over on Candid Communion. So I'll post a little sign up sheet. You can sign up, and then based on your location, age, and interests, we match you up, and everyone goes into a virtual chat room. It's not really a chat room, it's like a video room. You go into a virtual video room and go on a series of virtual dates with your matches. It's so much fun. Even just the experience of, like we were talking about earlier with Theology of the Body, just using it as an opportunity to meet someone new and pour into them and see what gifts the Lord has given them and how the Lord can work through them, through you. Even just going in with that mindset, I have seen such fruit come from this. We actually had our first engagement it was 2 weekends ago now. That was so exciting. My friend Nathan, who helped me kind of create the speed dating night, he and I were working on matches, and he was matched with Mariana, his now fiance, and they actually didn't make it to the first round because he knew who she was because she saw her name. And so, but he didn't know if they were going to date or whatever. So we matched them up and they were going to meet on the speed dating night. But he woke up the next morning and he was like, I really need to call this girl. I want to take her out. So he cheated, but they went out and then both dropped out of the speed dating, fell in love, and now they're engaged and they'll be married in January. So
wow,
it can happen.
It can happen. And even hearing your story, you basically met your fiance and like started dating and got engaged within a year, and then you'll be married like within what, a year and a half or like 2 years of knowing each other.
Yes, a year and a half. That's what's so crazy to me, but it's really cool. Like it's such a gift. Like I said, because we met in July, but we were really not, I wouldn't say we were dating. We were going on dates occasionally, but we didn't really start dating until after between Thanksgiving and the start of December. And after that, it all just kind of happened. Once you let go of the wheel, the Lord will take you for sure. So
yes, one date a month for several months. That is a very slow pace compared to what the world does.
True. We like to say that I am like a crock pot. Logan is a microwave. So I take a little bit longer to warm up, to get on board. But that was also had a lot to do with the fact that he's a football coach. I work in athletics. Football is our busy season. So we were both working every night. So that it had a lot to do with that, and a little to do with the fact that, the Lord just works in his time.
Oh my goodness. And when is your wedding? What month is your wedding?
We haven't officially set the date yet. We really wanted March 19th. That is St. Joseph's feast day. And I have been praying for that date probably since the St. Joseph consecration, when I was like, oh my gosh, this man is incredible and I have to marry him. So we really wanted March 19th, but the cathedral doesn't do weddings during Lent. So we're thinking maybe February, or either February or after, but sometime after Christmas, before summer really gets going. So
that's amazing. And then a long line of saints to come from.
Yes. The saints are incredible. Their intercession, I'm so grateful.
Oh, I just mean a long line of saints from you and Logan. Like, you guys are gonna have little babies and they're gonna be.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, we're gonna try really hard to make the best little saints we can.
So where can we find you? Where should we follow you? And how can young women join this awesome community that you've created?
CandidCommunion, it's just at CandidCommunion. Come on over, follow, message, sign up for our speed dating night. We have one coming up. So yeah, we're doing all kinds of fun things. For our 1 year anniversary, it was really just a year to throw a party, or an excuse to throw a party. But we had a little get together here in Dallas, where everyone who lives in the Dallas Fort Worth area came, and we made bracelets with miraculous medals. That was so much fun. And we were able to kind of connect and be in community in person. We have lots of fun stuff. We did a St. Joseph consecration, like I said, back in January. So that was online. That was also really fun. Lots of fun stuff that pops up. Whatever comes, we just go with it. So definitely come hang out.
Awesome. So I'm going to ask you some questions just to shoot from the hip and end up this interview. What Catholic book do you most recommend other people read, or what Catholic book has had like the biggest impact on your life?
Men, Women, and the Mystery of Love is like a pull from Theology of the Body. That one definitely was a life changer. It's a very simple and easy read, but it was like, why don't we talk about this like this? That book's incredible. What else? There's a lot, but that's all that's coming to my mind right now.
That's okay.
So maybe that's the only one that I'm supposed to tell you about.
If you had a billboard with a message on it that like millions of people could see, what would it say?
That's hard. I have so many things that I would tell millions of people. I would tell them that the most intimate way that we can be with Jesus on this side of heaven is to receive him in the Eucharist. And if you have not experienced that, go, run, find it, because he is here, present, body, blood, soul, and divinity, physically for us here. That is what, that's a really long tag to put on a billboard, but that's what I would tell people.
Every year you've had a different word as your inspiration. I think like last year, was it intentional or intentional?
Yes. Yeah, last year was intentional, which was really awesome because it kind of turned into Logan and I's word. It was intentional.
How did you start that practice?
Okay, so my best friend Jordan, if you follow CandidCommunion, you see her often. She has a blog that she started, and she now is a boutique owner. She has a blog, and then Flourish and Frills is her boutique. So go look them up. Shameless plug. But she wanted to start going around. We always do New Year's together. And we were at her house, and she wanted to go around the table and talk about what our word for the year would be. And her and my other best friend, Alyssa, she's also featured on CandidCommunion often. They love to host, and they're very also intentional about when they are given a space and when the Lord brings people in a community in their homes, that they do something that bears fruit. And so Alyssa does the same thing on her Friendsgiving. And so that's kind of just been a common theme throughout our little friend group, is that we share a word for the year. So that's how it started. I definitely recommend it. And I'll say this too. It's really cool because as girls, it's easy for us to kind of talk about our feelings or whatever, but the guys are always around when we're doing this, so we make them do it with us. And it's really cool to see what they come up with, how they kind of soften to the experience, and they start to buy in after you've done it a few years. So it's really fun. Poor Logan. It was, I think the second or third time he was with all my friends was New Year's. And so he got thrown in the fire and he had to pick a word because you all have to do it. Nobody gets out of it. It's a really cool tradition. Do it if you don't.
Do you remember what his word was?
His word was opportunity. So yeah, that's his word.
Awesome. Well, let's close out with a Hail Mary.
Okay.
And then everyone who's watching this, please go like and follow Candid Communion. If you enjoyed this video, please like and follow the Goretti group. You can subscribe and share this video, the Bay Area chapter of the Goretti group. If you'd like to start a Goretti group in your city, please contact us. We're more than happy to provide you with resources about theology of the body and how you can start talking about chastity and all of these virtues that are connected to this ministry dedicated to Saint Maria Goretti. All right, we'll pray. In the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Saint Joseph, pray for us. Saint Maria Goretti, pray for us.
Pray for us.
Awesome.
Amen.
Thank you so much, Taylor.